Welcome. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how Debian is used for medical software. My name is André Roth. I'm a Debian passionate since Debian Potato. In the past, I worked as software developer, free software trainer, and I have a background in IT security. Since 2010, I'm working as a software architect for Roche Diagnostics, where we develop medical instruments. In order to give you some context on where and how we use Debian, let me introduce you my employer. Roche is a global pioneer in pharmaceuticals and diagnostics, dedicated to advancing science to improve human health in meaningful ways. In 2016, we had over 94,000 employees worldwide, and we have a strong and decentralized network of 22 R&D sites in pharma and diagnostics. I won't go into the numbers too much here, but I find it remarkable that the R&D budget in 2016 of about $10 billion puts Roche among the top investors in research and development across the industries, including the IT world. I work in the diagnostics division in central Switzerland, where we develop medical instruments for in vitro diagnostics. Now, what is in vitro diagnostics? Basically, if you go to the doctor, there is a chance that he will have a blood sample taken, and this blood sample is then analyzed either at the doctor's office or is being sent to a laboratory, and the test results then help the doctor to decide upon a treatment. These blood samples or other samples are analyzed in diagnostic instruments, and they range from small point-of-care devices, which might be used in a pharmacy or at a hospital. It can be bigger devices, benchtop devices, which can be used in hospitals. There is devices used for medical research, where scientists can develop new treatments and new tests. And there is very big instruments which are used in large laboratories and have a high throughput. In 2016, instruments from Roche performed over 17 billion tests. These instruments, they have a lifetime between 10 and 20 years, and therefore a variety of operating systems are used. And these instruments you see here, they have something in common. They have Debian inside. Now, Debian might not be the only operating system. There might be multiple of them inside, especially for big instruments. But Linux is used for instrument control, controlling the mechatronics and the biomedical processes. So in order to understand a little bit more and get an insight on what's going on in such instruments, I brought you a small video. Maybe we had audio. Let me try this. So, do we have any Debian developers here, Debian maintainers? There is actually a chance that your package is inside such instruments and is involved in complex biomedical processes and is actually out there helping to save lives. So, enjoy. Oops. Come on, you can do it. I'm not sure if the audio is working. Otherwise, we do it without audio. So it might not be commonly known that Debian is used in medical instruments, and I think it might be interesting to you to see what is going on. This is a laboratory which is, for example, analyzing blood donations, and blood, I was amazed to find out, is actually among the top 10 most expensive liquids in the world. And you can imagine, before a blood donation can be used, it needs to be thoroughly tested, and that's what these machines are for. So, a little bit of history. In the past, diagnostic instruments were very chemistry-centric, with a lot of manual processing, manual workflows, and the technology used was basically electronics, maybe various real-time operating system with a small controlling software on top. With the demand for automation and higher throughput, diagnostics shifted towards being more process-centric, and with this came the need for more complex software, standard libraries, and of course, a real operating system. So, because Linux has actually real-time capabilities with some patching, we were able in 2007 to create our Roche Linux version 1. It was based on PTX-Dist from Pengutronics. This is a distribution which is completely built from sources, and we are using a real-time kernel with the RT-preempt patch. We had a development environment which is Ubuntu-based, where we cross-compile some C++ modules with custom-built scripts using CMake. Remarkably, the footprint of this Roche Linux was 24 megabytes. And as time goes by, there is suddenly a need for more computing power, so in 2010, we released a Roche Linux 2, which had support for a stronger industrial PC. And this trend goes on. A couple of years later, again, we had the need to change the hardware platform for some more computing power, and we were thinking about what to do for a Roche Linux version 3. The goals were to have some modularity to support a variety of internal projects, multiple customers, and we wanted also to have multiple use cases. So we wanted to have a development environment, a build and testing environment, as well as the production image. Security support and long-time support obviously were very useful, and we wanted to have more libraries and tools available. All this by reducing the maintenance effort. And you can imagine building a distribution from source each time you have a new hardware platform. That's not very ideal. So we came up with some evaluation criteria for doing this, and the main criteria was maybe cost efficiency. We wanted to reduce the migration effort for our internal customers. We wanted to look at what are the licenses and what is the commercial support for different Linux distributions out there. We wanted also to have a look at legal issues and how much the developers would need training. Another criteria was flexibility. As said before, we wanted to have some modularity for supporting multiple internal clients, easy add of new hardware support while keeping the footprint small. Configurability would help then to have development setups, different test setups and things. Usability was very important as well. We wanted to have many tools available and convenience for the developers and for the users. Our instruments being very long in the field, so longevity was very important too. Long-term support, reproducibility, and we wanted to have some kind of community around it so that it's a distribution that is useful and will be available a long time. Last but not least, reliability. We wanted to have software upgrades and security support. Usually what you do then in a company setup, you do a make or buy decision. And make would be to build an embedded distribution like PTX-Dist, what we had, or maybe use a mainline distribution like Debian. There is several commercial embedded products we could buy. And the group of people then analyzing these options, they felt that this does not really reflect the reality. So they came up with a way to present this to the management, and they invented the extension of the make or buy decision. It's the make, take, or buy decision. Because as well as for the free or commercial embedded distribution, you have to build it from scratch. Now, maybe GNU Make was not originally the idea behind make or buy decision, but for commercial and the free embedded distribution, you need to build everything. And the opposite to that would be to take pre-built binary packages, something which a mainline distribution like Debian provides. We were able to prove that the commercial vendors were not faster in releasing security fixes than Debian. And so also with the other criteria we analyzed, Debian was way ahead. So we managed to choose Debian as a distribution for our Roche Linux version 3. So RLX 3 came out in 2013. It was based on Debian Wheezy. We had the same real-time kernel. We were using the same custom build scripts based on CMake, but we did not have the need anymore to maintain a cross-compiling toolchain. So the toolchain is integrated in Debian, which saved us a lot of efforts. We were able to do internal repository mirrors with aptly, aptly being the Swiss Army knife of Debian repositories. And with this, we could then provision with Ansible and provide Linux containers and production images directly from those repositories. What we also get from Debian is security support for free, and we were very compatible to the development environment based on Ubuntu. In 2015 then, we added the Debian Chassis support to RLX 3, and we were surprised to see that the transition to systemd was rather easy and well prepared. So, quick look at the development environment. We had a local Ubuntu installation before, and in last year, actually, Roche Global IT then started providing the Roche Linux client. This is basically the laptop I have here, based on Ubuntu 16.04, again, based on internal Debian repositories. The staging is done with Foreman and Ansible, and with the configuration management allowed us then to automate the validation and qualification. With this, we were able to support rolling upgrades, so all the future long-term support releases will be supported out of the box. The key features, which I find pretty neat, is that we have full enterprise integration. I get from my company a Linux laptop where I'm able to have my user login, I'm able to print, I have wireless network access in every Roche site, and I can also have remote access using VPN. I think this is pretty remarkable, as well as we get worldwide support, Roche internally, IT support. Just to put this in perspective, Roche Global IT is providing about 120,000 Windows clients. There is like 14,000, 15,000 Mac OS-based clients, and we have 300 Roche Linux clients and counting. Okay, when you want to develop medical software, medical instruments, you're in a regulated environment. This means each country has a regulatory authority. In US, this is the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. And you have to follow strict processes, do extensive documentation. Every tool you want to use needs to be validated, and the developers need to be trained. In 2014, we introduced Git as source code management for the Linux-based software. And now, if a developer needs to use Git, he has to do a training before he is allowed to use it in order to be regulatory compliant. Also, a regulatory authority might do audits and ask you to build the same version as 7 years ago and then compare the result to see if your processes are reproducible. What does this mean for building medical software? I found a nice study online which shows pretty similar thing to what we are doing. We need to ensure the reproducibility of the build process, which needs to be auditable and recordable. We need to have a predictable environment for unit and integration testing. We cannot use external sources, so no internet downloads. Maybe you remember the Node.js incident, the left pad incident last year. That's, of course, a no-go. So we need to have in-house internal sources for everything we do, also for the tools and development machines. Also, we need to provide audit information for regulatory authorities. Of course, developers should then be able to easily and reliably perform builds. This is how our Roche Linux 3 development stack looks like. We run on top of Ubuntu. And we spawn a couple of Linux containers, which then can run different versions for maybe different projects, instrument projects of this Roche Linux 3, where people can reliably develop with it. The provisioning then looks as follows. We have on an instrument maybe multiple software layers. There might be a hardware abstraction layer. There might be several frameworks. We have a business logic, and there might be other tools. Not to forget about software testing, which does not end up on the final product, but which is kind of versioned the same way as the rest of the software. And with Ansible, we can then build images or Linux containers. So the benefits from using Debian for medical software is that we have a high reproducibility by using internal mirrors. We have security support for free, and the reliability, when Debian releases, it's stable. So, and this is a different stable as maybe other distributions. We really like that. Also that we have the toolchain integrated, which means the GNU compilers or even Java or even .NET, it's integrated into the distribution. We do not need to maintain an external toolchain, which is great. It saves a lot of effort. Also, we have high modularity, which allows us to keep the footprint quite low. We also have commercial support from a local company, similar to Savoir-Faire Linux, which helps us with doing Linux stuff. Then Debian has a great community, and you can just Google for a problem and almost everything find a good answer. Another plus is that for Debian-based operating system, there is a high acceptance factor. People might have played around with Raspbian or Ubuntu at home, even if they're not Linux developers. They might have gotten in touch with apt-get install and things. Then, very important for medical software, we need to generate a lot of documentation. Each package which ends up on an instrument, we need to put in a list of off-the-shelf software and have the license and version written down, even if this creates a 500 pages document, but having this automated is a great deal, of course. Last but not least, the cryptographic verification of the package sources and the packages itself are very interesting. Then there is all the tools. All these tools, dbootstrap, debhelper for building Debian packages, or simply tool like Aptitude-Y, which tells you why a package is installed on a system, is very, very handy for what we do. Also, there is DebSecCan, a scanner, security scanner for the packages on your installations, which compares it with online vulnerabilities, telling you exactly in what state your system is. So it basically, Debian is just fun using and very helpful. We launched several instruments successfully in the past years based on the setup you've just seen. Great. So what now? What about the future? There's new challenges. These laboratories, they're getting bigger, and we are, like other industries, in a digital transformation. We come from manual workflows, we are process-centric now. The future will be much more data-centric. So things like containers and Docker are a topic. We will have maybe parts of an instrument running in the cloud, running some algorithms in the cloud. There is big and smart data. Instruments are getting smaller as well, so ARM architecture is a topic. And Microsoft really helped a lot in pushing .NET for Linux. We have a lot of .NET software, and so if we can this run on GNU Linux by using Mono, this is just great. The list goes on. This is just a small overview of what might happening. And whenever there is a lot of software, a lot of connectivity, there is security issues. I found a nice study from 2015 and 2016, which actually shows that in US, 35% of the cybersecurity incidents were actually targeted to the healthcare industry. Way above other industries. Need to relativize these numbers a bit. The number rose, but the actual size of the incident decreased. And also, this includes phishing and social engineering. Only 14% are actually vendors of maybe medical infrastructure and instruments. But you might have heard also the National Health Service in UK had some problems with ransomware, so it's definitely a topic. Also, and this is from 2015, from the study, it showed that healthcare is nearly taking twice as long as other industries to respond to security threats. That's a challenge, and also the FDA, the regulatory authority, recognized this and has new recommendations since 2016, which actually recommends us to fix a vulnerability, validate it, and distribute it to the customers in no less than 60 days. Not later than 60 days after learning from the vulnerability. So how can we address those challenges? There is multiple ways of addressing these, probably. But we need to somehow integrate new technologies. We need to have more modularity in our software so that we can maybe support partial software upgrades. And overall, we need to do much more updates, much more software testing, and somehow embed security in the core. Automation, DevOps is a topic, and the list probably goes on. And there's a lot of solutions, possible solutions out there we need to investigate. So what we did from the software architecture, having had so much benefits from Debian, good experience, we're thinking, well, how about doing it the Debian way? How about we build just Debian packages for everything, native Debian packages, and we provide them with Debian repositories? This would mean that these software layers just become entries in your apt sources list, versioned entries. So each component is a versioned Debian repository, and with this, Debian repositories become the single source of truth, which is always a good thing. We could get rid of magic scripting around it, get rid of glue code and things, and just use what Debian is providing. So this would then be like a full system debootstrap. We could just apt-get install a top-level package, and this would install with dependencies everything we need, including the whole configuration for a system. Remember, we're making instruments, so there's no user configuring and installing packages. We know exactly what hardware is there, what configurations we want to have. So how about just providing the configuration with .d directories, which are very handy. We're doing some post-install and pre-install script. We even can use preceding and debconf from within those scripts. How do we get there? We cannot just ask a department, please set up a Debian repository and release your packages there. We have multiple departments, multiple groups providing different software layers maybe. And we cannot manually create repositories. We cannot just log into a server and type some apply commands to create a repository. We need also to manage somehow the dependencies and versions. And in the end, it would be nice if we could have some kind of unstable testing stable workflow as Debian is doing. So for analyzing this, we built the Debian build pipeline. This basically is a web user interface who allows us to manage projects and versions. This is then mapped to Debian repositories by using apt-gli. We can then add Git source repositories to a project version, and we, of course, have role-based access for regulatory reasons. Then behind this, we have build nodes, and if we commit a Git tag with a version, such a build node will use sbuild in a predictable environment to set up with sroot, and then we can build for all these architectures and all these versions. We managed to get this pipeline validated, so we can now officially use it and do more tests and then maybe convince a project to go the Debian way. The deployment then allows us to easily create from this single source of trust a variety of deployments. We can create the images, the containers, we can even create Docker or virtual machines out of the box. And this for multiple architectures and distributions. So there's a lot I think we can learn from Debian, especially the modularity and configurability, the packaging, simply outstanding, the semantic versioning, and the dependency management are things we really like to have in our software. Also, how to support multiple architectures and distribution releases, and adapted unstable testing stable workflow. Doing some tests with this and playing around, we have found some pain points. So if you try to create a Debian package of your own kernel and have it in a way that you have a headers package as well, and that you can then in other packages build kernel modules, that's a bit tricky. We managed to do it with a couple of workarounds. Also, installing software in a change root environment can be quite tricky because some packages are doing modprobe or running syscontrol commands, which then, of course, might mess with your host kernel. And there are special packages doing mount procs. They mount several things in the proc file system, like binfmt support, and then you have not a very consistent behavior in your change root environment, in your final setup. Also, debconf, if you debconf in a package, other package might then need to use predepends in order that the configuration is then really applied to the system. We try to use the source format Git, and unfortunately, there is no support for Git modules. That's not a Debian problem, but the Git bundle this is creating is actually not able to support Git submodules. So what about the future? Things which are definitely interesting to us is the Debian reproducible builds. And I was very happy to see that there is a real-time kernel back in Debian Stretch. I think in Jessie we didn't have one, so this is definitely something we're going to check out. And what is going on with dgit for actually building Debian packages out from Git, that is also very interesting for us. What I could imagine for the future is to use more Debian repositories, to have a nicely versioned workflow and a single source of trust it would be nice if we could put regulatory information in Debian repositories. How about doing apt-get build logs, and you get the build log for your package, or apt-get test results, or even requirements and specifications. I think for regulatory purpose, this might be very handy. Coming back to the make, take, buy decision, we were able to convince the management that it is a give and take. So we were sponsoring the RT Preempt mainline project. We are now gold member of the Open Source Automation Development Lab. We're also sponsoring Debian LTS, long-time support. And we are for the first time sponsoring the DebConf this year. Having a talk too. So thank you guys, what you do is amazing and we really appreciate. We're also contributing some features to some project like aptly, where we implemented acquire by hash functionality and fixed some other bugs and implemented some APIs. We submit bug reports wherever we can. And basically, that's it from my presentation. So now I would be happy to answer some of your questions. There might be a microphone coming around.
Okay, thanks for your talk. So this is amazing, actually. So, and I have a pile of questions which I can't ask here because that would really, explode the context. But one question is, do you have Debian developers on board in your company? If not, could you imagine to have some? And with regard to actually, I mean, this is amazing, having more industries like that would be really, really awesome for Debian. If you said, for example, security support is for free. No, it's not. People are working on that, actually. And we have, like, Univention, for example, they actually pay someone on the security team. I'm not sure how much he's paid for his work there, but sort of it's on okay. So there are concepts like supporting people in Debian with actually maybe even home office and actually stabilizing or consolidating your foundation of your work. So are there, among the future plans, is there anything that could be possible for that too?
I think that could be possible. I don't know enough to really now give a qualified answer to this, but maybe we can talk a bit offline about this. We have a group of people, it's not Debian developers, but definitely Debian enthusiasts, which are helping with things. And when we need, we get in touch with companies, external companies supporting us, and they might then actually talk to Debian developers and do things.
So I heartily encourage you and the enthusiasts in your company that they, not only as a company, but also as individuals, get in touch with the Debian community. And that because I'm so surprised actually to see
That's why we are here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but I'm not about the sponsoring level. So that's, the money is great, and DebConf sponsoring is great, and LTS sponsoring too. But it seems you have quite an expertise in your house. So, and Debian loves and needs expertise. So I'm looking forward to more.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Andreas Tiller. Also, thank you very much for sponsoring. And I have 3 questions. I try to make it short. One technical question is, you are building native packages. You are using native. This is not really.
That's a versioning thing. We like to have our own versions.
Okay, so you build in-house software and call it native, or?
There's maybe the Debian source format could be tweaked a little bit.
Technical detail, we can discuss it later.
Exactly. That's why we use native.
What I actually want to know is, we had this Debian Med team, which is actually doing something for medical software in the widest sense you can imagine. Do you know that we have this team, the Debian Med team?
Yes,
okay.
We know.
What can we do for you to make your work even more
Let's
easy?
sit together, definitely. We are here, we are having this presentation because we'd like to reach out to
Yeah.
you, Debian guys, to your community, and let's talk.
Okay, thank you. We even had on one of our sprints some employee also from Roche. He was not officially, he had a Roche email address, but I don't know, he was on one sprint. Do you know of him? He was doing some library also, maybe a colleague of yours, but you don't know. Okay, then I need
don't know
to
who
dig
you-
for this, and then we can discuss
Let's
later.
talk later, I would
Yeah,
appreciate
okay. I'm happy
Thank
about
you very
this.
much.
Are you joining the cheese and wine party
that. I think so.
today? Yeah, okay.
Any other
I will also
questions?
be here the rest of the week, so.
Well, I have a question. Maybe I missed it.
Yes.
So you have these labs, and they're deployed at clients, I guess, or customers rather. So how do you do the software updates for them? Are they automatically updating? Do you ship stuff to them, or can you even talk about that? Is that a big pain point? Is it like quarterly patch releases, or
As
are
I,
you?
as I said, we have a lifespan of maybe 20 years for some instruments and various generations of instruments, so there's not one answer I can give you. There is manual updates, there is automatic updates, there's a little bit of everything. And there's a little bit of every operating system and version as well. So currently we are trying to investigate in how we could use Debian upgrade mechanisms into our instruments. Does this answer your question? Thank you.
So final question. Yeah, final question.
Yeah, could you please go back to your first slides? I think you were describing yourself, your background, I think.
Okay, I can do that. I can
Oh,
try
well, never
to
mind. I
do
think you
that.
mentioned you had a background in training and
Yeah,
IT
that's true.
security, right?
Let me just, here we go.
So if it's okay for you, can you describe what your previous role was or what your previous job?
I was during my studies, got in touch with Linux and the fever took me. So my first job, I wanted absolutely to work with Linux. And the first job I got was at a startup who was giving GNU Linux courses. You might know the LPIC certifications. So we were basically the first ones in Switzerland giving those courses.
Okay, and what would you say was the hardest for you transitioning from that to this big company environment using free software in this context?
Well, I think it was an evolution. I was really enthusiastic about Linux, and then I found my way into security. If you have a good Linux background, you know the operating system, you know the networks, you know all the tools, then you can easily find a job in security. And from security, then you find maybe a way to the medical software industry. Does this answer your question? Thank you.
Okay, so we're running out of time. Thanks again for the great talk.
Thank you very much.